that we form is when we grab the guitar. If I played like this, and I remember telling you this, if I were to play whatever it was, right, something nice and easy, if I took a beginner guitar player's brain, and put it into my head and said, feel this, they would be shocked at how little that feels. But because our we're not like attuned to that tiny bit, right, of feeling in motion, we want to feel that a little bit more. You know what I mean? It's why drums are so great for kids. It's like they can really feel everything. And so we have to train ourselves. Now where the issue happens is where we usually come in, right, a little heavy with both hands, way too heavy with both hands, to be honest, is that could be anywhere from 20%, I kind of go like in a percentage scale. Like if this, right, is sort of like in the 10% range, right? That could be anywhere from 25 to 100%. You know what I mean? Where we're coming in. The problem is if I do this we'll hear it in the picking hand, right? We'll know if we're picking too hard. But with this hand, whether I'm playing chords or just that little line, if I squeeze the hell out of it, you can't tell that I'm squeezing the hell out of it, rather than just playing it lightly. We can only really hear what this hand is doing for the most part. So then we're just streamlining everything that we're learning in a super heavy way. And the problem is most guitar teachers, this isn't a detriment to them, it's just the style of teaching and how like a guitar teacher would usually starts teaching, I guess, wouldn't take that into consideration. You know what I mean? And it would just be like, oh, okay, we just need to move faster from chord to chord, right? Not really realizing that like you're squeezing so hard. So it's a habit now, and it's we have to go backwards. And the problem is it's always going to be a habit that we want to get to. You know what I mean? And really what we're doing is we're battling it the whole time. The only way to really battle it is to play so lightly that we might not make sound. Now, this is almost the same thing with like, going through like for people that over sing a little bit, is sort of afraid to lose the voice there. So we squeeze to make sure that we don't, and then we tire out. That's the same with this. We don't want those notes. And our reaction is to immediately squeeze, which is funny because sometimes we get those notes, and that's not because I'm squeezing or not squeezing.
Yeah. That, right.
So that's our immediate reaction when we get those notes, and we don't want those notes. And adults especially, it's just like when we can hear our mistakes, it's kind of interesting. Like kids don't always care. As adults, when we can hear the mistake, we want to fix it right away. I recommend like even playing below the auditory line, you know what I mean? And going, like I always say, like we want to get as close to the cliff as possible, and that's the perfect technique where like if you watch those guys that, sort of playing really fast, they're trying to get right on the edge of that cliff where they're about to lose volume and lose notes, and the note isn't there. They're not picking hard enough. They're not squeezing hard enough, and whatever it is. And then they train themselves to stay right there. We can go off of that, right? And get used to even falling off of that, and just sort of messing around with both hands, dragging that pick across those strings and getting really loose. I only have a couple of those notes coming through, you know what I mean? How comfortable can we get doing that? And then realizing, yeah, that's it. And then realizing that's when we can really feel, if I do this, it does not take me very long, or very much effort, I should say, to get those notes to come through clear. You know what I mean? And that's where we can really feel it. So instead of going like this, instead of going, oh, I'm squeezing the hell out of this thing, I don't need to, let me lighten up. If we're not getting to that cliff, if we're not getting to those notes, we'll never know where we actually want to be. So if we start at the cliff and then move just into that, we'll get a better idea. We'll get a much better sort of sensory reading of how far we need to get to make sound. Can you split that up? Yeah, can you split that up? And that's very, very important. No, I know. Well, that's the other thing too, is we are sort of always coming in with the same amount of effort. And you can that's the thing, is when we're coming in, this is much easier to do, and this is where the mistake happens, right? It's much easier, especially this is much more of a little kid thing, is to go, right? They're really picking into those strings, because this, again, doesn't feel like much of anything, right? And they need that sort of sensory thing. Adults don't need it that much, so we're still over picking, but we can tell that doesn't sound good, so we'll calm it down. Now the problem is, if we're coming in heavy and heavy, and we notice this hand is the heavy one, we will start calming this hand down a little bit while this one's staying heavy, right? And then that becomes our scale now. When really we want to bring this down and have this do whatever the hell we want, and that we need to reverse where that is. And the funny thing is, there would be huge benefits to learning the guitar this way as soon as you pick it up, right? Just absolutely, super light. But that would come with some detriments as well. You know what I mean? That would happen where if we needed or wanted to be more dynamic in our playing, it would be harder to push that limit. There is a benefit to learning it heavy, whereas we know where we can go and we know what that sounds like when we get there. And that is, again, just to relate it to singing, that is a problem. When I was teaching rock vocals, that was a huge problem, where somebody would come in and they would talk like this, and they would sort of sing, ah, and they'd be like, why don't I sound powerful in the studio? And I'd almost, I would never laugh at somebody, but in my mind I'd say, wow, do you not know why? If you're just talking like this, and then it's hard to get them to that level because they don't, right? So in a physical way, it's difficult to go heavy and bring it down light, because we're not used to going there. We're afraid we're gonna lose. We're afraid we're gonna get click notes. But then in like an auditory way, in how things sound, it is better sometimes to start loud and bring it down, because now we know we can get to this level, and it isn't uncomfortable. It just tires us out. It's not like, it's not wildly uncomfortable to squeeze these chords, you know what I mean? It's just like, I'm only going to be able to do this for so long before, I kind of have to flex my hand out. So there are benefits.